If I told you that a British sports car with an American heart dominated every muscle car on the drag strip in the 60s, would you believe me? It's no secret that the golden age of American muscle produced some of the most legendary quarter-mile monsters ever built, but one lightweight roadster left them all in the dust. We're running through 17 of the quickest quarter-mile legends from the 60s, cars that were street legal, factory built, and dangerously close to race ready. What made the 1969 Plymouth Cuda 440 earn its spot on this legendary list? Running 13.89 seconds at 103.21 miles an hour, this beast packed a massive 440 cubic inch V8, producing 375 horsepower. While most remember the later HEMI Cudas, this 440-powered variant was the everyman's muscle car. Plymouth dealers would demonstrate the car's smooth power by placing a full glass of water on the hood during acceleration. Not one drop would spill. The Cuda name itself has an interesting origin. It's a shortened form of Barracuda, big surprise, when Plymouth discovered younger buyers preferred the nickname, 'cause everything's gotta have a nickname. One of its most innovative features, however, was the air grabber hood, which could be opened and closed from the inside of the car with a dash-mounted switch, giving drivers control over the cold air intake on demand. But if you think that's impressive, wait until you see how this compact little Chevy shocked the muscle car world. The 1969 Chevrolet Nova SS proved that big things come in small packages, clocking a 13.87-second quarter mile at 105.14 miles an hour. Nicknamed the Giant Killer, this compact warrior packed Chevrolet's mighty 396 engine, producing 375 horsepower. But what made it truly special was its power-to-weight ratio that helped it embarrass larger, more expensive competition. The Nova SS became such a dominant force at local drag strips that Chevrolet quietly offered a special drag pack option to serious racers. Despite GM's official no racing policy, many dealers would work after hours helping customers set up their Novas for optimal quarter-mile performance. These dealer-modified cars became legendary in street racing circles, often outrunning more expensive muscle cars while maintaining their sleeper status. But speaking of weight, how did one of the heaviest muscle cars of the era manage to outrun both the Cuda and the Nova? The 1968 Mercury Cyclone GT, weighing a hefty 3,880 pounds, shocked everyone with a 13.86-second quarter mile at 101.69 miles an hour. Nice. This often overlooked muscle car featured Ford's mighty 428 Cobra jet engine. What many don't know is that NASCAR legend Cale Yarborough had direct input in the Cyclone's development, contributing to its impressive aerodynamic design. Mercury even created the NASCAR-inspired Cyclone Spoiler 2 variant that would later influence the famous Plymouth Superbird. The car was so aerodynamically advanced that Ford used its design principles for future models, making it a pioneer in wind tunnel-tested production cars. Pretty impressive, but Chevrolet unleashed a beast made for one thing only: obliteration on the asphalt. The 1968 Camaro Z28 was Chevrolet's secret weapon in Trans Am racing, running 13.77 seconds at 107.39 miles an hour. Its high-revving 302 V8 was officially rated at 290 horsepower, but insiders knew it produced closer to 350. At just $358 for the Z28 option, it was probably the best performance bargain of the decade. But the Z28 option code was so obscure that many dealers didn't even know it existed. It was buried deep in the regular options list. The 302 engine was specifically engineered to meet Trans Am Racing's 5.0-liter displacement limit, making it one of the few purpose-built racing engines available to the public. But some out there preferred their muscle with a side of luxury. Enter the gentleman's hot rod. The 1969 Plymouth GTX combined luxury with serious performance, running 13.70 seconds at 102.8 miles an hour. While other muscle cars screamed performance with wild graphics, the GTX offered sophistication with its wood grain interior and optional air foam seats. Known as the gentleman's hot rod, it came standard with bucket seats and a wood grain dashboard. Plymouth specifically marketed it as the executive hot rod to appeal to older, more affluent buyers who wanted performance without sacrificing comfort. It was one of the few cars of the time that could burn rubber while keeping your martinis steady. But Ford was about to prove that their pony car had grown into a full-blown stallion. The 1969 Mustang Mach-1 proved Ford's pony car had serious bite, running 13.69 seconds at 103.44 miles per hour. The 428 Cobra jet engine was so underrated from the factory that Ford essentially sandbagged the competition. The iconic shaker hood scoop got its name because it physically shook with the engine, mounted directly to the carburetor and protruding through the hood. Ford's drag pack option included a different rear axle ratio and engine oil cooler, making it a serious contender at the strip. But the insurance companies eventually caught on, making the Mach-1 one of the most expensive muscle cars to insure. Now, can a car really deliver justice on four wheels? Pontiac sure thought so. The 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge wasn't just another muscle car, it was a cultural revolution running 13.9 second quarters. Born from a failed budget muscle car program, John DeLorean transformed it into the legendary Judge, complete with psychedelic colors and that iconic 400 cubic inch Ram Air 3 V8 producing 366 horsepower. The Judge got its name from a popular comedy routine on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, "Here Come the Judge." What started as a budget model evolved into the most expensive GTO, proving DeLorean's marketing genius, even though the DeLorean itself was only really good in the movie Back to the Future. Speaking of legends, what happens when Carroll Shelby decides to wear the crown? The 1968 Shelby GT500 KR earned its King of the Road title with consistent 13.9 second quarters. While Ford claimed 335 horsepower, a few quick adjustments and removing the air cleaner unleashed over 400 horses. Each car bore Carroll Shelby's signature, with the man himself testing one from each batch. Every GT500 KR had a unique serial number stamped by hand, and the KR designation was added mid-year, making early 1968 GT500s particularly rare collector's pieces. But is the next one the moment that Corvette proved it wasn't just fast, it was the king? The 1969 Chevrolet Corvette 427 represented American engineering excellence, running 13.8 second quarters. As the first American production car with four-wheel disc brakes and independent rear suspension, it was decades ahead of its time. The L88 version was so powerful that Chevrolet deliberately underrated it at 430 horsepower to discourage street use. It required 103-octane fuel, which was nearly impossible to find at regular gas stations, making it a true race car for the street. But of course, this did not stop Chrysler from unleashing their elephant. The 1968 Dodge Charger HEMI, with its 13.50 second quarter mile at 105 miles an hour, showcased Chrysler's legendary 426 HEMI. Despite losing money on every HEMI engine built, Chrysler considered it a marketing investment. Each HEMI was hand-assembled by specialized engine builders who took pride in their work, signing each engine they built. Those distinctive dual scoops weren't just for show, they fed cold air directly to both Carter 4-barrel carburetors, creating a perfect air-fuel mixture for maximum performance. Now, have you ever seen a NASCAR missile with license plates? Well, you're about to. The 1969 Dodge Charger 500 was born from NASCAR necessity, running 13.48 seconds at 109 miles an hour. With unique aerodynamic modifications including a flush-mounted grille and plugged rear window, only 392 were built. The name 500 wasn't just for show, it represented Chrysler's ambition to win the Daytona 500. Each car featured a specially modified coronet grille and fastback rear window to improve aerodynamics. These innovations would later influence the legendary Daytona and Superbird designs, making the Charger 500 the grandfather of NASCAR aero cars. But sometimes, some cars prove that the simplest approach is the fastest. The 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner 426 HEMI was the blue-collar hero, running 13.5 second quarters. Plymouth's $50,000 investment into the Roadrunner name and beep-beep horn paid off, helping sell over 80,000 units in 1969 alone. But this cartoon-themed muscle car almost never happened. Warner Brothers initially thought Plymouth was joking when they requested the rights to the Roadrunner character. The base model's bench seat and rubber floor mats kept the price low, but the HEMI engine made it one of the fastest cars on the street. Now, what happens when a muscle car hides its rage behind a smooth face? The 1968 Dodge Dart 440 was the ultimate sleeper, running 13.4 second quarters in an unassuming package. The 440 engine was so massive that mechanics had to modify the engine bay during installation. Many were delivered with a disclaimer that they were for racing use only, and savvy racers removed the Dart badges to maintain their secret weapon status at the strip. The combination of lightweight body and massive engine created one of the best power-to-weight ratios of the era. But Ford was about to answer with one of their most ambitious projects yet. The 1969 Mustang Boss 429 ran 13.34 seconds at 107 miles an hour, with each one hand-built by Carcraft. The engine was so wide that the shock towers needed modifications just to make it fit. Ford lost thousands on each one, but needed them for NASCAR homologation. Each engine was hand-built and signed by its builder, and the massive hood scoop was needed just to clear the valve covers. And the Boss name came from styling chief Larry Shinoda, who referred to the project as the Boss's car during development. But what happens when Chevy puts a license plate on a track monster? The 1969 Chevy Camaro ZL1 represents the peak of Chevrolet's muscle car development, running 13.1 second quarters. Only 69 were built. Nice. With each featuring an all-aluminum 427 that was essentially a detuned Can-Am racing engine. Just the aluminum engine block was so expensive that it cost more than an entire Nova. Each ZL1 Camaro cost more than a Corvette when new, making it one of the most expensive Chevrolets ever sold. And the engine was so powerful that Chevrolet refused to provide an official horsepower rating. But even it wasn't a match for our next contender. The 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner, running 13.32 seconds at 107.65 miles an hour, proves that sometimes the sequel is better than the original. With its 426 HEMI producing 425 horsepower and priced for the everyday enthusiast, it represented the perfect balance of performance and value. Plymouth's marketing department insisted on keeping the cartoon theme, even adding the beep beep horn that became its trademark. The car was so successful that it won Motor Trend's Car of the Year award. And now for our number one spot. What happens when one car doesn't just raise the bar, but redefines the whole game? The 1965 Shelby Cobra 427 demolished everything with a 12.2 second quarter mile at 118 miles an hour. Carroll Shelby's Anglo-American hybrid combined a lightweight AC Ace chassis with Ford's most powerful engine. Shelby even had a famous $100 bill challenge. He'd put the money on the dashboard and tell customers they could keep it if they could reach it while he accelerated. The early versions of these cars were so powerful that many were returned to dealers for being too difficult to drive. With a power-to-weight ratio that wouldn't be matched for decades, the Cobra 427 hit 60 miles an hour in 4.2 seconds, a number that would embarrass many modern supercars. These machines weren't just fast cars, they were the embodiment of America's optimism and engineering prowess in the 60s. While the Cobra 427 ultimately proved to be the quarter-mile king, each of these vehicles contributed to a golden age of performance that we'll likely never see again. In an era before fuel crises, emissions regulations, and safety standards, these cars represented pure, unfiltered automotive enthusiasm. Modern vehicles of today's world may be faster, safer, and more efficient, and have some nice technical amenities, but they'll never capture the raw character and historical significance of these 60s legends. These weren't just cars, these were the dreams of engineers, designers, and enthusiasts brought to life in steel, chrome, and high-octane fuel. The Cobra's dominance proved that the muscle car formula of bigger engine, bigger car wasn't the only path to quarter-mile glory. By combining European finesse with American muscle, Shelby created something entirely new, and in doing so, changed performance car history forever.